Hello, Old Cappy here. Today we're going to talk about feeding bees. There are a few reasons that you feed bees. When we talk about feeding bees, we're actually feeding the bees a mixture of sugar and water, so a sugar syrup. And there are different ratios of sugar to water that you mix up, and it depends on what your goal is as to what that ratio is going to be. The most common ratios are 1:1, which is 1 part sugar to 1 part water, and then 2:1, which is 2 part sugar to 1 part water. It can get real confusing, and you can get into measuring water and measuring sugar and weighing water and weighing sugar, but today we're going to keep it real easy. The bees don't really care what the sugar weighs and what the water weighs. They will eat anything you give them if it's sweet. But there are reasons that you make the syrup lighter or heavier. Real quick, the 2:1, the 2 part sugar to 1 part water, is a heavy sugar syrup, and a lot of times beekeepers will feed that to their bees at the end of the season in the fall, right before winter, to help them. The thicker the syrup, the more they will store it, and that will allow them to store that sugar syrup as like it's honey, and that will give them more food through the winter. Now, it's springtime right now, and so I am feeding my bees a sugar solution of 1:1, or maybe a little bit less than 1:1. And that's what we're going to really talk about today, because the 1:1 is what I really think is a great help for the bees and the colonies, and what you're going to be needing to do as a beginning beekeeper when you are setting up your nucleus colony to start a new hive. So 1:1 sugar, 1:1 ratio is 1 part sugar to 1 part water. You feed that to bees in the early part of the year, or you can feed it to them anytime. What that light syrup does is it helps them get used to new environments. So if you put them in a new box, or you've caught a swarm and you're putting it in a box and you want to keep them for a while, if you want to take your nuke home and you're going to put it in your own box, you're going to want that 1:1 syrup to feed them. What that does is it allows them to kind of get used to that new environment. It also promotes wax production in new baby bees. That helps them to produce wax to then build the honeycomb that they're going to need for their honey and their pollen and their babies. So a lot of times on a new colony, we'll feed them 1:1 to help them build that comb quicker, so they can get started and get going and get established better and faster. 1:1 sugar syrup is also very helpful for colonies that are showing signs of weakness or sickness. It's really interesting. A 1:1 sugar syrup, it mimics the honey flow, especially in the early spring. It's a real light syrup, and it mimics that, and it's so interesting to me, when the bees ingest that light syrup, the colony as a whole becomes more antiseptic. It actually helps their bodies produce an antiseptic. It's hydrogen peroxide, basically, is what it does. A light sugar syrup on a colony of bees will make the whole colony, there will be a trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide in the colony. And what that does is it helps to clear out any viruses or any sicknesses that's going on in the colony. So if you have a weak colony, if you feed them that light 1:1 sugar syrup, then it can help them overcome that sickness and become a strong colony again. So we will, every now and then in the middle of the season, I might feed a colony that if they're looking pretty sick. Now, here is the secret. When you're feeding sugar syrup, you do not want your honey supers on your hive. If you have honey supers or anything on the hive that you're going to take and try to eat that honey, and you're feeding it sugar syrup, you're probably going to wind up eating sugar syrup more than natural honey. So when we feed sugar syrup, we always make sure there are no, we're not taking that honey at all. And so now in the early spring, there's not a honey flow. I'm feeding bees sugar syrup to help them get established, help them build combs so you can take them home and put them in your own colony. I do not have my honey supers on, and I do not take the frames out of the brood boxes on the bottom to take honey from, because that could have sugar syrup in it. So that is the thing about feeding. So 1-to-1 sugar syrup helps promote an antiseptic environment, a hydrogen peroxide, if you will, inside the hive. It's always good to help bees get over sicknesses or illnesses or anything like that. It also helps them establish a new colony, establish in a new box. 2-to-1 sugar syrup is great for storing that sugar syrup for the winter so they can get through those cold winters without starving and without eating all of their honey stores. Okay, now we've talked about 2-to-1 sugar syrup, we talked about 1-to-1 sugar syrup. Now I'm going to talk about how I mix it in the field. As you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but I'm in the middle of a field in my apiary. There is no water, there's no electricity, there's no ovens. And so I typically will mix my 1-to-1 sugar syrup out here in the field. And how I do that, like I said earlier, you can get mixed up into, is it weight or volume or what, but it just is 1-to-1. So 1-to-1 by volume or 1-to-1 by weight, sugar and water. And again, if you're off a little bit, it does not matter. The bees don't care. The bees just like sweet sugar syrup, and they will take it in any way they can get it. Now here's how I do it. I have a little bucket. You can see it's not real clean. The bees don't care about that either. They will not ingest the leaves and things that are in here. They only want the syrup, and that's all they care about. So I have a little bucket here, and then I have my big giant bag of sugar here. And what I do is I just pour sugar into this bucket about halfway. Not a lot of precision here. I just pour it about halfway. That's maybe a little bit more than half, but I'm going to show you how I take care of that here in a minute. Now, here's my water source. I have spring water from the house. There's a bee that wanted some water. I'll get him out of there. There's some water there. So what I do, I've got half of this bucket full of sugar, so now I'm just going to pour half of it full of water. Now you'll see the bucket does get a little bit bigger to the top, so even though my sugar was a little bit past half, it's wider, so there probably is more water. Again, I'm not going to get mixed up in that minute details. Here's a stick that I have. I'll use a branch. Sometimes I'll just bend over and pick up a limb and start stirring. So here's my sugar and water. I'm going to stir it up. It's a lot of sugar down there, so it gets hard. Now, typically I'm on the ground doing this, and I'm on grass, and I'm not real delicate. As you can tell, old Cappy is not a delicate guy. And so I make a big mess. And that's okay, nobody cares. That's why I like beekeeping, because it's only me and the bees don't care. I can do whatever I want. So here, I've mixed up my 1-to-1 mixture. See if you can see that. It's a little cloudy. See, I'm making a mess and nobody cares. And I just mix it up like that. Now, as you saw, as I mentioned, may have been a little bit more sugar than I first wanted, so I'm going to show you what I do. Okay, I had to go get my other equipment. This is a mop bucket that I use. It's got a little spout, so it allows me to pour that sugar syrup a little bit better than it does out of this thing. And I also have a giant funnel that I use, and I put it in the hive top feeders, and I pour the sugar in here like this. Now, I hope you can see this. I transferred, what I do is, once I get it mixed up in this bucket, I transfer it to this bucket. Now I have a little bit more room on top. So if I accidentally put a little too much sugar, I just pour a little more water in there. And there's my thin sugar syrup. Now again, the bees don't care. As long as it's thin, it's a 1-to-1, a little bit less than 1-to-1 is better. There have been people that have done scientific experiments that know the exact ratio, but as far as I'm concerned, and I think the bees are concerned mainly, 1-to-1, a little bit lighter than 1-to-1 is good for them. All right, let's go feed some bees.